You often hear me talking about the difference between reactive leadership and intentional leadership. In today's video, I want to talk to you about the impact of reactive leadership and why it is so important as leaders we move away from reaction and we move into intentional responses, not just for the benefit of our team, which I know I talk a lot about, for the benefits of you as leaders as well. If you haven't met me before, I am Thompson. I'm a leadership and performance coach, and I help leaders to be better leaders with better balance. So moving from reactive to intentional leadership, which means they're more efficient, they're more effective, and they've got confident, resilient, self-sufficient teams who can handle things in their absence, which means they can go home on time and they can take a big week off. Zero work, zero stress, and zero guilt, knowing that they've got a great team handling things in their absence. First off, let's just get really clear on what reactive leadership is, because I'm pretty sure as I explain it, you'll know what it is. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as I talk this through. Reactive leadership is always on, very quick to react rather than respond, always solving the problems and never truly resting. I see this a lot when clients first come to work with me, successful on paper, looks great on paper. They've achieved the promotion that they want. They've built their business to where they want it to be. They've got a great team of people who want to do great things. They're delivering the results, but they're also exhausted. So hitting targets, making things happen, but not being able to switch off, working weekends, and the thought of going on holiday and switching off for a week feels completely impossible. A lot of what I'm hearing when people first come to work with me is that they're checking emails on holiday. They're checking in with their staff when they're on holiday. They are always on. And that's reactive leadership. Everything is urgent. It's a reaction to the loudest voice rather than responding to the bigger picture and what needs to happen. The constant problem solving rather than finding solutions and delegating out to the team to problem solve. Very much firefighting rather than looking further ahead, looking at the bigger picture and looking to see where they can prevent the fires rather than having to put them out. It's a calendar that controls you and also a team that depends entirely on you. That is going to feel overwhelming for a lot of people. There's a lot of anxious feelings there. There's the exhaustion because they're not getting proper rest. They are trying to keep control, but not having any control. Things are very unclear. They feel guilty. And they feel resentful. And that is a whole mixed bag of emotions which take up a lot of headspace and really don't help. Reactive leaders often have shared beliefs, common beliefs. They see themselves as the doer. They see themselves as the problem solver. They want everything to go through them so that they have sight, so that they have that overview. Because in their mind, if they don't do it, it won't get done. Or if they don't do it, it doesn't get done to the same standard. Or if they don't get involved in it, it doesn't go well. That sounds like you. You're in the right place. Stick with me for this video and probably check out a few of the other videos on this channel too. It's really important to say at this point, this isn't just what I'm seeing with the clients that I work with. The research is supporting this as well. Reactive leadership is not a comfortable place to be. In fact, if we think about how physically we are reacting in these moments, it's not just the headspace that it takes up. There's going to be a physical stress response as well. And this is the chronic stress which impacts our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. We want to step away from being reactive and step into being an intentional leader. It is much better for our well-being, much better for how we feel, which means we're going to feel better when we go home at the end of the day as well. It's going to feel much better for our team. It's going to impact how our team performs. It's all connected. It does take a shift to move from being a reactive leader to being an intentional leader. the benefits are huge. So it is definitely worth putting that effort, energy in to make it happen. Because when you shift from reactive to intentional, you go home on time. You actually switch off, not just on the evenings, but weekends as well, and to be able to go away on holidays. So you're not just physically present, you are mentally present as well. Your team is going to step up. When you are intentional, the benefit for your team in their progression and their development is huge. Your team steps up. You make better decisions and you move from that surviving feel and surviving in the role to thriving. When that happens for you, it's going to happen to your team. And when your team thrive and step up, that's why you can go home on time. That's why you can take the week off, knowing that they have everything handled in your absence. Intentional leaders view leadership very differently. They don't see themselves as being the doer. They see themselves as being the enabler. They don't see themselves being the problem solver. They see themselves as leading a team to problem solve. And they see themselves as someone who is able to develop their team, calling their team up so that they can reach their full potential. They're leading their team to do the work that needs to be done, to deliver what needs to be delivered and be successful. Now, for intentional leaders, it feels in control. It's very clear. They know what's happening. The energy is very different because it's not survival. It's intentional. It's purposeful. There's a sense of confidence that they can take a moment to decide what needs to be done. They don't need to react. They don't need to react quickly and find all of the answers. They've got that confidence to take a breath, take a pause, prioritize, look at the bigger picture, think ahead, think longer term. So they're not just reacting in the moment. They are responding for the here and now and also what comes next, which is incredibly important. And it's the difference between the reacting and responding. It's also the difference between tactical leadership and strategic leadership. Not just dealing with what's needed now, but also thinking wider, thinking bigger picture, and thinking longer term as well. It is uncomfortable when leaders start to make that shift. It's not uncomfortable because it's wrong or because it's selfish. It's uncomfortable because it's different. And a lot of the behaviors that have served them really well, that have meant they've been great at the roles that they've been in so far, have worked really well for them. So it's very hard for them to let them go. But when you're modeling sustainable leadership and you're building confident, resilient teams, and you are working on creating a culture where it's okay for people to rest and take that downtime so that they don't have to recover because they're nearly on the verge of burnout, you're modeling sustainable leadership and you're showing what intentional leadership looks like. And whilst it's intentional leadership for you, you are modeling self-leadership for your teams as well, which is really important. Ultimately, you could stay doing what you've always done. Ultimately, you'll get the results that you've always had, but also you are just going to keep heading straight into the risk of burnout. Your team will continue to be dependent on you, and that will continue to happen, and they will probably become over-dependent on you. Not only did they lose their confidence, they lose that confidence for autonomy. It puts added pressure on you, which increases your stress response and your anxious feelings of leaving them alone to do the job that they are there to do. It's not just going to impact the confidence in the moment. It is going to prevent them from developing their capability and reaching their full potential, which means then they are more than likely to disengage. They're going to back off. They're going to ask why bother. And that is not going to help because that ripples out pretty quickly across the rest of the team. And we know that engagement in teams, engagement with individuals is one of the key indicators for high performance and low turnover. If you want to keep your good people, intentional leadership is where it's at. I'm going to share with you 10 areas of work where you can shift from reactive to intentional. And you can implement these straight after watching this video. They're going to be that easy to do. Although some of them will be a tactical shift, it's probably going to need a mindset shift to make it happen. So, first one, emails and notifications. Reactive leaders check their emails constantly throughout the day. They allow notifications to interrupt them and they respond immediately to everything. Intentional leaders set specific times to check their emails, morning, midday, end of day. They turn off the notifications so they're not disrupted, and they respond intentionally. Just because it's landed in your inbox doesn't make it a priority. Intentional leaders take a step back and look at where that email sits with everything else that needs to be done that day. And they teach their team what to expect with responses. They create a culture around good email management and notifications. 2, the bane of everybody's life, and there will be another video on meetings separately. Reactive leaders accept every meeting invite. They want to be in the room, they want to be involved. They're in back-to-back meetings all day. And because they're in back-to-back meetings all day and because they're accepting every invite, they do not have time to prepare, and they're going from one meeting to the next, and their headspace is all over the place. So even when they're in the room, they're not present, they're not prepared, and they don't get what they need from that meeting. Intentional leaders, they ask questions before they RSVP. They check why they are needed in the room. They check what the purpose of the meeting is. They check what they need to prepare for that meeting so that when they do show up, they are ready and raring to go. They block time out to prepare for the meetings and to follow up after meetings. They're not back to back. There's protected time either side. And they prepare for the meetings that they lead on, as well as preparing for the meetings that they are showing up to. They are not afraid to decline meetings that they do not need to be in the room for. 3, decision making. Reactive leaders make decisions on the spot under pressure. So they want a fast reaction time because there's part of their brain that thinks that's a good way to react, that people want quick decisions. So they decide on everything themselves. And because they're making fast decisions, quite often they need to make another decision quite quickly afterwards when more information comes in. Intentional leaders, they take a bit of time. They involve their team. They might ask for different perspectives. They might ask for recommendations. They gather the information that is available to them. They consider what information is not available, whether that is likely to come in. They make informed decisions. Not through panic, not through reacting. They gather the information, they assess the information that they have, and then they make a decision and they communicate that decision clearly. Number 4, this is a biggie, delegation. Reactive leaders keep everything for themselves. They do it themselves because it's faster. They do it themselves because they know it's going to get done properly and to the standard and in the way that they need it to be done. Need being very subjective, and they're rescuing their team. So they're hands-on fixing and rescuing rather than supporting and guiding, which is what intentional leaders do. They develop their team by delegating. They see delegation as an opportunity to let their teams upskill and develop, which also leads into succession planning really nicely. They trust them to figure it out. So not only do they trust their competency, they trust and give them that autonomy to make those decisions. So we've got a no blame culture within here as well. They recognize that delegation helps build capability and capacity within their team. Number 5, your calendar. Reactive leaders let everyone else schedule time. They show up, they log in, they see what is in their calendar, and that's how they go through their day. So it's a very reactive calendar, reactive leadership. There is very little to no control over their week. Intentional leaders, they protect the time for strategic work. They've got blocks of time protected. They know what needs to be done in those blocks of time to help them to stay on schedule with some contingency built in. So their calendar is blocked out. They're very intentional about what they say yes to and what they commit to, and they design their week around their energy levels. So the work that needs a lot of focus and a lot of attention is done when they're at their peak energy levels. And the easier things to pick off are done perhaps when they might be lagging a little bit. It's very intentional, and it is by design rather than by default. Number 6, saying no. Reactive leaders say yes to everything. They take on every project. They say yes to every meeting. They say yes to all commitments that come their way. And there's a part of them that kind of prides themselves on being the person who can. So they do. Intentional leaders, they recognize that they can. They also know that just because they can doesn't mean that they have to. So they say no to things that are not a priority for their remit. They say no to protect what matters most. They are very clear on what their capacity is. And when they are near capacity or at capacity, they communicate that with the people who need to know. When they do say no, they look to see whether or not that project or task could be a great opportunity to develop those within their team. But they protect their energy. They say no to protect what is most important. Number 7, your team's problems and challenges. So reactive leaders solve the problems for them. They jump in when things get hard. They rescue. They become the hero. Intentional leaders ask more questions. They help individuals to think things through. They give people a safe space to talk it through and problem solve. And they will support and guide, not necessarily give them the answers. They recognize that the best way to develop their team is to not rescue, but to support and to guide and to develop. Number 8, energy and rest. So again, there's another video on this one too. Reactive leaders, they just keep going. They work through their lunch, probably come in early, go home late. They skip the breaks. They work evenings, work weekends, and never fully switch off. Intentional leaders, they protect their rest time. They recognize that rest is part of the strategy for high performance. So they take the breaks. They protect the downtime, they step away from work when they need to, and they model this for the rest of their team. They model for their team that rest and slowing down has its benefits and also helps people to pick up that pace when it's needed. So they model those behaviors of protecting energy and rest for the rest of their team. Number 9, planning and thinking time. Reactive leaders, they react all day. So there isn't any time for work on strategic tasks and activities. It's that constant firefighting in crisis mode, which means they're getting behind what's happening in the moment, but they're then losing sight of what is kind of coming down the line. Intentional leaders block the time out to plan and to think. So they plan their week either on a Friday afternoon for the following week or on a Monday morning. They are looking to see where they need space to slow down and look ahead, to be able to look at the bigger picture, to look further down the line. They prevent a lot of the problems that are happening, which then means they don't need to be in crisis mode. Their teams aren't going to be in crisis mode because they're getting ahead of problems. Finally, number 10, your team's development. Reactive leaders, not willingly, unknowingly, a lot of the time are keeping their team dependent on them. They're not proactively investing in their growth. They might react when something comes in and they'll delegate out or they'll pass it out to somebody on their team, but they're not thinking bigger picture further ahead for succession planning. They're focusing on the immediate outputs only. Now, intentional leaders are developing their team intentionally. They're not proactively responding to things. They're thinking ahead, they're succession planning, they're asking in one-to-ones, what do people want? Where do people want to develop? What roles are people interested in? What skills gaps, what knowledge gaps, what action gaps have their team got that they want to bridge over the next couple of months? They're having these conversations, they're asking the questions, they are knowing what their team want to develop on. They're also recognizing and knowing what the business needs their team to develop. And they're having those conversations and they are dealing with them proactively. So that's the 10. The interesting thing for me from these 10 is that often reactive leaders feel like they're more hands-on. They feel like they're more engaged with what's going on. They feel like they're more connected, but often it's the opposite of that. So they feel like they're hands-on because they're in it and in the detail, but actually they're disengaged from what really matters. And we know from the research that leaders need to be engaged to thrive. We also know that they need to be engaged with what really matters. So engaged in what isn't helpful is what creates the stress and those uncomfortable emotions that we know leaders experience and often lead to burnout. All of these 10 that I have talked through are identity shift, how you see yourself as a leader, how you show up as a leader, how you want to show up for your team as a leader. Yes, a lot of those are tactical changes, but they're driven by the identity of wanting to be an intentional leader, someone who shows up with purpose, somebody who shows up by design rather than by default, somebody who is conscious about how they engage, how they respond, and how they lead. There's tactical points in there that you can change probably quite easily, but unless you shift that identity of seeing yourself as somebody who is able to do all of those things, that is what good leadership looks like, that's the leader that you want to be, those tactical shifts are very hard to keep going and rely on willpower. When we change and shift that identity, then that's what helps really embed those tactical changes. And it's what helps us to just show up as a different leader because that's who we are. Now, that shift from reactive leadership to intentional leadership shifts so much, and the benefits are endless. Not just for you as an individual and for you as a human, because you are a human aside from your leadership, but also for your team as well. And whoever is important to you outside of work will also see those benefits. I would love to know, as always, which of those 10 you are going to implement. So now you know what you know. What do you commit to doing differently? Remember, keep it simple, keep it small, keep it specific. Let me know what shifts when you make that change. Now, some of you will be able to implement these changes very easily. Some of you might need a little bit of support. So don't forget, there is one-to-one coaching, there is the leadership community, and there are 2 programs to support you with your leadership. Both are online. There's the Elevate Your Efficiency Leadership Program, which is 8 weeks to help be more efficient, more effective so that you can go home on time. And then there's also a 12-month program, which is new for those who are perhaps newer to leadership or into a new leadership role and want to focus on what intentional leadership looks like at this new level. If you want to find out a little bit more, pop me a message or head to the website. All of the information is there, as is a link to book in a call. So if you're not sure which is best to support you, we can have a chat, talk it through, and I will signpost you to either free resources or a way to work with me that's going to help. And I will be back with another video very soon.